Good evening, everybody, and welcome again to the Esports Show for Week 2, Episode 2, Breach. We're covering some pretty hard content in this week. It's going to be a little confusing at times, but please stick with us and follow us all the way through. I'm joined again on my wonderful couch by some great co-hosts, same as last week, recurring hosts for the Esports Show. We've got Oakley, Sleepy Time Tchaikovsky, Lewis, T-Ball Gratz, and at the end, Aiden, A.K. Hicko. How are we doing today, guys?
Doing well.
Doing
Awesome,
well?
yeah.
Lewis, how are you feeling?
Oh, about a 5 out of 13.
Oh no, that's a really specific ranking system. And we can use that later for some really important content. We'll start with the ThrowDown Street Fighter 5 tournament announcement. We've got some qualifiers coming through the start of October. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, we do. ThrowDown have announced in conjunction with Red Bull that they're going to come out and support Street Fighter 5. Tournament final's going to be over at PAX, and qualifiers they're going to be around the States during October.
And so we do have from the 4th to the 6th, I believe, is some online qualifiers for the Street Fighter 5 champs going on. Then you've got a Sydney LAN, 2 Melbourne LANs, and of course then finals at PAX. So
that's quite massive.
FGC, it's pretty big for what's going on in the FGC scene locally, and I think it's a good progression forward. Let's start getting some more live events happening.
Yeah, certainly right. It's another exciting field of esports that's not generally covered, so it's good to see it get in there.
Absolutely. Let's get into talking about international results, though, for our country. Chiefs have actually made it over, not so much on a private jet, but they did go and compete in the IEM Oakland qualifier.
They did, and I did kind of highlight that they were a little bit off, and that might not be the team I'd select to go over, but it was great exposure for them as well going over. They're good experience. But if the Chiefs don't have a sports psychologist, that would be my first thing on the menu.
I think it's some development that they need when they get back. First thing on the menu. Aiden, your favourite thing was PEX. He was very specific in his return documentation.
If he knows where Singapore is or where Vietnam is, but I'm pretty sure if you write the wrong country on your entrance card into the country, you get a bit of trouble, so I mean, he's young, right? So maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he does know. He's played a lot of CS.
Stay in school, kids.
Yes. Don't become an esports.
For those of you who aren't aware, PEX, unfortunately, on his return entry documentation said that he spent majority of his time abroad in Vietnam. He thought that the documentation was for, generally speaking, over his lifetime, not how much time did you spend in this one trip overseas.
Where have you been in the world?
Yeah, that's right. Tell us your dreams. Look, easy mistake to make, right?
Oh yeah, life story. But that's why it's good that Frank went along with him.
Oh, that's right. You need a team manager there. And yeah, I think Frank handled that pretty well. We did obviously have Greyhound Gaming, who are overseas competing in the ESEA Mountain Dew League. What was the go with them? How'd they do?
They started off well.
Yeah?
Yeah, but then
out the gates,
just couldn't get there in the end. Bit like the Direwolves in the end, I suppose.
I wouldn't talk about the Direwolves, but yeah, I like that analogy there. Greyhounds out the gates.
Yeah,
yeah, they did. They yeah, obviously didn't do as well as they hoped, but you know they still gave it a shot. And I think it's great seeing these teams overseas competing, especially coming from our region. So.
Again, more international experience coming through, more LAN qualifiers here to go overseas. Can't complain with the international exposure. So, end of the day, we talked about it last week, and it'll be a recurring theme in future weeks, I imagine. So, it's good to see those teams doing well overseas. We do want to head straight into a very important piece, though. I actually had the chance to sit down with Noisia from the Avant Gaming CSGO roster this week, and we had a chat about all things Avant and their recent boot camp in China. And I'm here on the couch with Alec, also known as Noisia from Avant Gaming CSGO roster. How are you feeling today, friend?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, man.
You feeling good? We've just had you play from Australian Esports Masters this weekend. Unfortunately, the boys and yourself didn't play too well, and we've come out a little lower than expected in the results. How are you feeling about how the team did?
Pretty underwhelming. I felt like we could have done a lot better. I think the team felt the same. It was pretty heartbreaking to lose how we did as well. But yeah, we were definitely aiming to probably take out the whole thing, and to like fall even before semis, like quarterfinals, was pretty rough.
Do you feel that it was individual performance? Was it roster, or is it a combination of things at the moment for Avant?
Yeah, I don't think you can pinpoint one thing. Like people probably want to scapegoat like maybe like one or more people, like you know, like particular issues, like more like they're having the majority of the way, but I don't think like one or like, you know, even two things. I think there's multiple factors that contributed to us like not being able to perform. I think that's like an ongoing thing as well. Yeah, so it's going to take time to resolve that. I don't think there's any quick fix. I don't think one person is necessarily to blame. So there's no quick fix about it. Yeah.
I think it's a good mindset moving forward. I'm sure we'll see you guys improve. But you guys have just come back from China. Tell me a little bit about that massive trip.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. It was great to go to China. I haven't been before. The food was really good until we came back. But yeah, no, it was a good experience. Definitely a lot different to our last trip in Malaysia. So it was great to see like the differences in like Asian cultures. Yeah.
I heard there was an interesting method of relaxation on the plane.
Oh yeah. We did some Tai Chi.
On the plane?
Yeah, on the plane, like in our seats, and
right.
They showed us like how to do it in your seat, but then they also showed us how they do it like standing up. So like it was like sort of modified that you could do it on the plane, but it was like they didn't believe us, the Melbourne boys, because they were in a different plane.
Yeah.
And we told them that we did Tai Chi on the plane. They're like, "What are you talking about?" Because it was only on our plane. Because I think we were like in a holding pattern, you know, like we had time, so they're like, "Oh, let's do Tai Chi," to like calm them down.
So it's a bit of this on the plane.
Yeah.
Just sit in your seat.
A lot of like breathing, like inhale, exhale, like movement, like slow movements, like to get you relaxed, I guess.
So is that coming into what you boys are now doing at LAN as well? Just
Yeah.
getting ready, prepared
We're
for
saying
games?
we should take tack pauses and literally just do Tai Chi, but we thought it's probably not viable because it's like 30-second pauses. Like it's very slow like movement, so you can't actually use that form of relaxation really.
What you could get would
TS.
just get one of the boys, just sit there, and he's get the timeouts strung together, so you can have like all 3 timeouts all at once, mid time, and then get it moving, get the.
Yeah, I felt like we were using tacks like that anyway. Like we weren't using just 30 seconds, we were using like a minute or like a minute 30, like in lumps. So we probably could if we wanted to. Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
we could. Yeah.
So other than the Tai Chi on the plane, you obviously went over for a reason. Tell us more about what the actual point of this trip was.
Yeah, well, they're primarily for like a boot camp against like a lot of the Chinese teams. Because I felt like even though we were going to China, it sort of worked with like what we were strong and weak against. I feel like we, in the past, were like weaker to that like aggressive play style. So it was, I think like a Chinese boot camp or like an Asian boot camp is like way more like effective in this scene than like an EU boot camp. Like I don't think, like it'd still be great because you like learn like a really, really strong play style. You know how to play against like a really, really strong play style. Like EU teams have been really dominant. But I think like the Asian scene for us has been like a much harder counter. Like that aggressive play style is something that we always struggle against. So like to be able to verse like the top teams in that sort of play style was like really beneficial.
Yeah, and I suppose when you guys have other boot camps, I mean, you've had China earlier, you had Malaysia, and so coming up, moving into eventually, maybe you guys will have an EU boot camp. Really, as a team, I feel you could probably take things away from all different regions.
Yeah, for sure.
So, other than that, I heard there was some interesting and unfortunate times with taxi drivers and players being kidnapped. What?
Okay, yeah. So the story was, it was me, Cruden, and Steve. No, me, Cruden, Desi in a cab.
Right.
And the translator was outside the cab. He was meant to come with us. Didn't end up coming with us. It was like talking about like, oh, do you know where this place is? And he's like, no, I got no idea. And then they have like a verbal argument. I have no idea what they're talking about, but it sounds like really aggressive. So I'm like, this is bad. And then the cab just drives away, and all I know is that guy doesn't know where the place is. So where's he driving to? And like it ended on a bad note. So I'm just thinking the worst at this point. And we're like initially we're like, oh, he might just like rear off to the corner, and like then the translator will come up and we'll get everything sorted. But he just kept going, and I don't think the translator expected that because he was like following us. Like up the road. Yeah, up the road. He's like, oh, they'll stop and then we'll like get everything sorted. But it didn't happen.
Oh, no. So where'd you guys end up?
We ended up going like a fair while before he actually knew where we were heading. Like he like was driving really, really slow for like the first like 5-10 minutes. And then like he was like finding out where he was going, like GPSing it. And then, yeah, we got everything sorted. We ended up safe, but like
So it was all good.
Yeah, it was good. But
Jeez.
we had no idea where we were going. And I don't know how we would have come in contact with like the other boys because there was no internet or anything. So
Yeah, of course.
we would have to
China.
find Wi-Fi. Yeah. Somewhere. But
Wow, so just all good though. Obviously,
Yeah.
you guys are okay.
Yeah.
You're back, but I can imagine it wasn't exactly pleasant, especially being a foreign country that doesn't really have a good English speaking ratio as well.
And the thing was, we didn't even know where we were going.
Yeah.
Like only he had the address, like our translator had the address.
Right.
So like, or even Zach, but neither of them came with us. So we're trying to like split off. So like at least one person was in the car that knew where we're going, but none of us knew where we were going. So if he didn't know, then we were stuffed. Like we didn't know, like we couldn't tell him where to go.
Well, at least all things considered,
Yeah.
you guys had a good China trip and,
Yeah.
and a good
Besides
boot
that,
camp.
Yeah.
Looking, of course, for yourself, things have changed in the Avant roster, and you're assuming more of a leadership role. Tell us how that's panning out.
Yeah. So I've pretty much been the IGL for just over a month, sort of, like maybe a month, just over like 2 months. And it's been good. Like I enjoy it, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And I feel like it's not as natural for me in the sense, not of like a leadership role. I don't have a problem with that. Like even in sporting teams, I've been like I can be a leader, but more in the sense that I feel like lurking and like that sort of like mindset of like still being like a very like more like mind over like aim sort of like player, but it's like to a much more like leader degree. Like it's sort of not just yourself like in a lurking role. Like then you sort of just only need to feel it out for yourself. But with like a IGL role, you need to also think about the whole team. So one's like very, very solo, very like sort of introspective, like only one person, and then the other one's the complete opposite, whilst using like the same like concept of like thinking about things more so than just relying on like your mechanical skill. So they're the same, because I feel like the other three are probably more like aim like respective. Maybe support still do like everything else. Like there's no clear defined other roles, like AWP for sure. But entry and support, they both take each other's roles, right? Like you can't always have your entry entering. So it's like that sort of dynamic with that. And I feel like those two roles lead themselves more to like the thinking aspect. So in that way, like it became easier to transfer over, but still very different roles. And one was like more natural, one required more work. So I'm still like learning, but yeah.
Are you finding that your calling's good in game? Are the boys responding to you as the in-game leader well?
Yeah. The boys are great. Like they respect me a lot, which is like great help. Like if you're a caller and your team's not like listening to you, or they just don't value like your input, then it becomes like 10 times more difficult. But they've been like really, really on board with it and like trying to help me out a lot and like what I can improve on. I'm always asking them like, is this good? What are my strengths and my weaknesses? What can I improve on? Like, do I feel like I'm using you well enough? Like, do you want me to like move things around? Like, can I use you better? So I'm always thinking about like, how can I use them better? Am I doing the best I can for them? You know, because they'll know before I know, like in themselves, like if like I'm doing the best by them. So that's great feedback, I think.
And if those boys are giving you the feedback, I think that's the difference between being a leader and being a boss. Is that it's a relationship you have to fill out with the boys, that you're filling a role here, but you guys are all on the same level together, yeah?
Yeah.
Good. Looking at why that decision's come through for you now to move to IGL, what are the main influences, why the change up? Because you guys have gone through a couple of changes for callers in the roster.
Yeah. We felt like we needed a bit of a change. The calling, I remember when we first changed, it felt like we had this like insane edge on people, because when you switch calling styles, if you have two different calling styles, because I remember, because we had Cruden calling before, right? He had like a very aggressive calling style. Mine's like a lot more methodical, slower. I can still like switch it up, of course, and he could as well. He didn't always just be purely aggressive, but his instinct was a lot like quicker, a lot faster. It felt like more of like an Athletico type play style, you know. So in that sense, it like caught a lot of teams off guard. So it was great in that respect, but primarily, I don't know. He sort of felt like it wasn't really for him. He felt like he was more needed in other roles, and that role really, like he wasn't really excelling in that role, and he felt more comfortable playing in a different role. So we sort of accommodated for Cruden, which was fine. Like I was happy to take on board the role, but it just meant moving things around and like investing time in other places. So it did set us back a bit. But overall, I think the actual switch up also propelled us forward, because when you switch up roles, the dynamic changes. So that also can catch people off.
And it looks like I need to lay off the performance-enhancing food, or maybe wear a corset to my next interview, guys. But other than those small flaws aside, in my peak performance male esports body, Alec was amazing to interview, and that was a great piece. I love talking to him. We can elaborate a little more on that. If you want to see the full interview, though, there is a little bit more to it. Head on over to our YouTube, and you can check it out there after the show. Avant Gaming did amazing things going over to China for a big boot camp, despite stolen professional Counter-Strike players. It was a very good experience for them, and there's a lot more in stories that I just can't say on the show.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that.
No, we definitely don't talk about that. But overall, it was about professionalism for these boys as well. Alec was great on camera, and that's something we want to do with more players. So if your club or you as a player want to come on and talk about esports and talk about you and your position in this industry, send me a message on Twitter @JudgeBrand. Let me know what's going on. Let me know when you're around, or maybe one of my wonderful colleagues here can have a chat to you over in Sydney.
You can @ us.
At you?
Yep.
Yeah, @ me.
DMs are open.
DMs are open.
Baby.
Slide up in those DMs.
Now, Avant Gaming, a very professional esports club, moving to a professional esports club that is stateside, I want to take a moment to talk about Immortals and the way that they've handled this whole situation regarding their CSGO roster. It's been what some might consider an absolute management nightmare, but I have to give Noah Winston and his team the utmost praise and basically applause for what they've done and the way they've handled this situation. Don't think we need to get into the specifics of what's gone on. It's been all over Twitter for about the last week. But guys, how do you feel about the way that this was handled as an organisation?
I think the way it was handled was fantastic. They did it extremely professionally. It was kind of like, just nip the bud, say this is what's happened. I like the fact that the CEO put out a 6-minute video onto Twitter explaining everything and saying, this is what's happened, this is what we've done, and this is how we're going to go ahead. And obviously, we're not going to really go into details about the immaturity of the players, but the professionalism of everyone else. But if you act like a child, you're going to get treated like a child, and I think that's great because too many organisations, too many people let, I guess you could say these top tier esports people walk all over them, and I think it's great that that hasn't happened this time.
I'd agree. Lewis, you and I talked about actually something that Thorin mentioned in that teams aren't really teams.
Yeah, well, outside of a franchise model, the teams actually work as sort of an agent does in traditional sports, because teams can boot the whole teams off. There's no requirement to keep them. There's no salary caps. There's no, well, there is history, but I mean within leagues. So outside of a franchise model, like the AFL, like the NFL, like the EPL, it's basically players saying, hey, I want sponsorship and awareness. How do I get that? The sports player goes to an agent. A esports player doesn't have that, they go to a team.
And I think, it's a multifaceted thing, because we've talked about previously on Twitter about, I ran a poll on whether esports agents should be a thing in helping players navigate the business of the esports industry. And that got some pretty stacked results towards the yes, that it is needed and it would be a good thing.
Maybe they already exist.
Maybe they do.
as the teams. We just didn't think about it in that way.
That's right. And so the flip side then comes down to something we touch on in a moment in terms of contract disputes and having the things balanced between the teams and the players themselves.
Yeah.
Aidan, what's your feel on this whole Immortal situation and the way that teams are handling stuff like this?
Look, I think it was a warning sign for other teams who are in this situation. Like Oakley said, we've had a lot of players just kind of walk over organisations or put things back on the organisation, and the organisation doesn't have much to do, because generally the crowd will follow the player and be like, oh, you need to treat them better. What we saw here was a player doing something very unfortunate, not taking the professionalism himself and listening to them, and the team came down on him. And I really respect that. Absolutely respect the Immortals for doing that, because they're not just a tier 2, 3 org. Like, these guys are the top of the chain, and for them to be leading the way in this manner, I think it's a great thing for esports.
I think so as well. The thing that really got me was the transparency of it all.
Yeah.
Noah sat down and said, this is what's gone on. Now, there's some things we don't need to go into and hash over, and we don't need to talk about those. They're irrelevant. The facts behind the outcome don't really matter. But this happened, let's deal with it. This is how we're moving on as a club. And if you're a fan of the Immortals brand, and you're a fan of our ethos, you'll move on with us. If you don't really get that, you'll probably be on the players' side here, each to their own. But this is how we do things.
The fact that they did that pretty much just cuts out all of the unknown, what happened, what are they going to do now? It cuts out the gossip, it cuts out the things that can fly around the community. It can cut out, bad names for organisations, for players, all that kind of thing. It's basically, like I said previously, like everyone said, it was clean cut, and I think a lot of people can really appreciate that and really respect that from them.
And Noah, sorry, I was going to say, just say Noah did say, it's not about having the best team or the best players, it's about being the best organisation, which I can also really relate to and really respect.
And that's something that we've discussed previously, off camera, but talking about clubs that we like locally and the way they deal with people, different approaches. And having a let's win everything, let's beat the best approach isn't necessarily bad. We're not talking about the ethos and the ethics surrounding those. That's a completely viable way to run things. But when you're looking at fostering talent and fostering a PR brand that is, we are a club that's together, we help each other out, we're building something here, that's when I think we start to see some of that brand loyalty that Thorin touches on.
We fly as one.
We fly as one.
Nice plug.
And a shameless plug there. But
That's the grand final this
It is
week.
the grand
Come
final.
on, man. Go the Crows.
It'll actually be the first game of AFL that I've ever watched.
Wow.
Yeah, to
Congratulations.
defer from the topic. But
Are you broken?
No, man, I'm from Sydney.
Oh, that explains
yes.
a lot. It explains a lot. That's from
Sorry,
your...
I've lived in Sydney as well. I know that it's a bit weird there.
No shame on the esports capital of Australia.
I thought that was Adelaide.
Well, here's the games.
We're
We
not in
play
Sydnny
games,
anymore.
okay?
Oh, we're not in Sydney anymore. We've got a beautiful
No
banner,
change,
so we don't have to spruik Sydney anymore. This is great.
That's it.
The thing that, another part of this whole Immortals thing that got to me is the way that Noah and the organisation addressed the players' contracts. It was all dealt with above board. When KNG was in breach, it was dealt with and the organisation let him go. All above board, which I thought was very good. The flip side, or more on that, is how the players that were left were dealt with, especially in Henny and Lucas. And that segues into what I want to talk about next. And this is a segment I want to call Gavel Down, because I brought this for a very specific reason. I want to preface this discussion by saying, first and foremost, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a law student. I haven't quite finished my degree. I'll get there. I work for a lawyer. I'm an intern. That's great. I might have a little bit of extra knowledge behind me that kind of supports what I'm going to say here. And in all circumstances, what I'm saying is not a substitute for legal advice. That's the very point of this discussion, is get a bloody lawyer. It is not hard. A lot of the scare tactics around it is, oh, but lawyers cost a lot of money. And yeah, lawyers can be expensive. But the difference between having well-written contracts and well-written agreements between not only clubs and players, but also policies across the esports industry is phenomenal. When you start having clear-cut contracts, clarity and brevity is key. And that's what I want to mention, because we see it come up every single week. There is always a problem where one player didn't get paid according to their contract, or a club wants to buy a player from another club, yet doesn't want to pay their buyout fee and wants to look for material breaches that don't even exist because they can't find those, they're not a lawyer. It's a very simple concept. There are plenty of lawyers that want to get into the esports industry. They're all sitting out there, locals as well, that want to move into this space, not only because, oh wow, it's an amazing market and we're looking at basically the start of a sports industry, and look how big the traditional sports industry is for sports lawyers, my God. But also because they understand that things need to improve. And in a lot of cases, these are young people that are being dealt with here. These are people that, for the most part in esports, aren't over the age of 22. These people don't understand contracts. They don't know what to look for. And that's just when we're looking at a contract that's simple, let alone a contract that's written in legalese, in legal terms. And a lot of contracts get complicated because they need to be. They need to outline a whole heap of different criteria. At the end of the day, it's worth it, and just talk to someone. There are so many people with DMs open. Full disclosure and clarity, I work for a guy that's looking to do this kind of stuff. And if you're an esports organisation or a player with an issue, just send a message and inquire. It doesn't hurt to just send a DM. And that's basically what I want to talk about with you guys. It's something that we discuss off camera literally every day. Yeah. Someone comes up with another payment issue or they want to hold tournament organisers responsible for players not getting paid.
That was my favourite one this week.
Yeah,
when I saw that. I was like,
that was something else.
yeah.
Like, that just baffles me because, of course, anytime something like this happens, we get the legal experts come out on Twitter. It's like anytime the debate of global warming comes up on Facebook and everybody in your friends list is like, oh, I know the scientific facts behind global warming. I studied it for all of 0 years. It happens on Twitter all the time.
I studied it for half a year.
You did.
Interesting.
And
That's
it's
still 0
regrettably how
years.
we met. So
0.5 years.
Well, not the law, the global warming stuff.
Oh, right. I thought you meant the law, and I still regret that.
I studied
I'm
a
not
lot of
lawyer.
things.
I'm not a lawyer.
You have, and you've studied philosophy, so you can understand the approach that we're taking
you're one
to
of
this.
those
He
guys,
is.
a
He's one of those with
philosophy.
a BA.
One of those useless degrees.
I did
At the end of the
comms.
day, though, guys, like, really, it's not hard. Is it just me sitting in my high horse and going, you peasants, why don't you just send a message? Or is this really something that's as simple as organisations saying, hey, we're actually a company, we should probably have good contracts that cover us in employment law?
I feel like now more than ever is one of those times where if an org puts a contract in front of you, you want to get it checked out. Like, of course, if that means, normally I'm sure most people would run it by the team or a coach or something and be like, yeah, this looks all right. But we've seen how that has backfired in the past, like immensely. We've seen so many people get screwed over, and it's, if I don't know of those stories of everything that's previously happened, if that doesn't encourage people to go to a lawyer, I don't know what does.
And I mean, I get messages like from some people. Like, there are people that reach out to me and have reached out to others, and I want to say good work to those people. Obviously, I haven't done work for them. I'm not legally qualified to, but refer them on to someone that's interested. Refer them to a qualified lawyer and say, maybe you should talk to this person. And there's a lot of senior people in the industry that can do that. And there's a whole heap of issues regarding this space in the esports industry. We could dedicate almost a show to it in saying that orgs are sitting down with their players, offering them a contract and saying, look, here's what we put in there. Now, that's good. That's all well and good. And most of the time, the orgs that are doing that are doing it from the right place. They're saying, you know what, we need to sit down with these players because they're not going to read this contract. They're going to sit there, look over it, think they understand a couple of things, know where to sign their name, and scribble on a piece of paper. And that, to me, isn't actually helping. Although in their minds it does, it is a horrible conflict of interest. And a lot of these clubs' daughters are much of a muchness. They want to help, and I get that. It's coming from a good place. But it can so easily be turned on a head to say, you said this.
Yeah, well, we've seen contracts in the past.
We have.
We've had contracts given to us. We've seen other people's contracts. And often they are so poorly written.
Mm-hmm.
There are holes everywhere. It's just a mess. Like that, the long and the short of it. Absolute mess. And even we signed something that we went, hang on, when we've reread through it, we've gone,
Oops.
And we were hopped up on excitement.
what did we do?
We made a
What are we
mistake, and we
doing?
were sitting at 21 and 27 years of age when we signed that.
Yeah, but how do you become a master at something?
Make mistakes.
Make every mistake possible. And we have made the mistakes, and so we know how you fall into it as well. We've seen it before. We've done it ourselves. I mean, like, it wasn't like a screw you over contract. It was just more, it wasn't well worded.
It was a contract that, look, in hindsight, being perfect vision, we turned around and said, look, we probably should never have done that.
Or just have it, like, because we would have still signed it if it was written well. It wasn't the context of the contract. It wasn't there to screw us. It was just that.
We probably would have turned around and said, you know
better
what,
words.
let's clean this up a little bit. Let's be a bit more clear. Let's make sure we understand what's going on here, and let's actually use phrases that are binding in contracts.
And the name is on it.
Yeah.
We actually.
Oh, wow. No name.
Well,
No
our
name.
names were there. All the names were there, but then company names and things like that.
Of course. Of course.
Just a few key information.
Just
Yeah,
key
just,
things in the purchase and sale of a company
So
that we didn't even have the company name
under
in there.
common law, it'd still be valid, but it's just a little bit messy.
That's right.
I
doesn't
think
have to-
contracts are one of those things that, like, they look terrifying. You get handed this massive wad of rules, ultimately. You look at it like, do I really want to go through this and read all this, or do I trust the guy in front of me? 9 times out of 10, you are going to trust the guy in front of you that's handing you that contract. You need to read every single word. And if you don't understand something, don't be afraid. Like, exactly that. Reach out, ask, or even just ask the guy in front of you, ask someone next to you, ask your parents, ask someone. if there's anything on there you don't understand, before you sign it, before you get yourselves caught in a situation where, you know, you're not protected or not safe.
And if there's one piece of advice I can give anybody, if someone is offering you a contract and they have sat you down, or digitally you're sitting in TeamSpeak or Discord, and they said, here, sign this and you can play for our team, do not sign it immediately. It is the simplest thing you can do to protect yourself. Even just for your own clarity of mind. You'll be sitting in that meeting in front of that person who's offering you this contract and this opportunity and going, you know what, this is great. I'm really excited to be here. Heck yeah, let's do it. And scribble on that dotted line. You might read through the whole contract. About 60% of players in the region reckon they do, and I call that out as a lie. But if you read that contract, you're reading it from a very biased perspective, going, I'm really excited for this, I should get this done. Take the time out for yourself. They cannot pressure you to sign immediately. They can't do it.
And if they do, that's sort of an area of concern.
That's a red flag
That's
in
a
itself.
huge red flag.
Absolutely. And so that's what I say. Just take time for yourself. If you take anything away, I'm not giving legal advice here, I'm giving some common sense in that you don't have to sign a piece of paper straight away.
Yeah.
Take some time and read, and above all else, even when considering what we're saying tonight, talk to a lawyer. Just send them a message, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to that. No doubt next week there'll be another contractual issue between a tournament organiser and an organisation that's not getting paid a player's wages that wasn't even playing for their team but was loaned to another team, and we won't go there.
Welcome to Matt's nightly 5-hour podcast.
Can we do a top 5 and 5 contract disputes of the Oceanic region this week? Because I'll bet I can find the content.
Just throw the gavel down. Just throw the gavel down. Finish.
Yeah.
There we go. There's. Whoa.
Throw the gavel down. Enough on contracts for now, though. We want to move to Overwatch.
Woohoo.
We have had some debate earlier in pre-production about what's going on with the Overwatch World Cup, with Apex, and with patches coming through. Of course, a massive patches drop for Overwatch. Notable changes across the board, one of them being Battle Mercy that's come through and having one hell of a resurgence in actually being Battle Mercy, not people playing her as Battle Mercy. Oakley, we talked about this to great lengths. We talked about the competitive differences between the patches and also what in the world is going on, because we've got some big titles coming up.
Yeah. So I did touch on this last week and how I was pumped to play the new patch and try out that new Mercy as well as Junkrat, Diva. There's heaps of different things that have changed in Overwatch. It changes the entire pace of the game, the meta, everything. And of course, when you think about it, you know, we've got Overwatch World Cup coming up. That's in about a month. We've got Apex and we've got Contenders. And then it raises the question of, do they play on the old patch? Do they play on the new patch? And of course, you know, majority of the time they're going to play on the old patch. But Apex have come out and said, yes, we are going to be playing on the old patch. Same with Contenders. But we've got the Apex, what's it called?
Challenges?
You got
Apex
Challenges.
That's the one, Apex Challenges. And they will be playing on the new patch.
Okay.
So it raises the question of Overwatch World Cup. What's happening there?
And of course, no details have been announced
No
yet, have
details
they?
have been announced. We don't know if it's old patch, we don't know if it's new patch, we don't know anything. And I feel like it's only fair to the players because, of course, you've got half the region playing on new patch, half the region playing on old patch. You've got people scrimming on the old patch to prepare for the comps coming up. And it's if Overwatch go and say, oh, you know, Overwatch World Cup's going to be on new patch, all these teams have been scrimming on the old patch.
And qualifying on the old patch.
And qualifying on the, it's exactly, because it raises the question of kind of touching on another topic with Seagull joining Envious, and there's talk of Envious dropping a player because they haven't actually announced if Seagull's going to be on the core team or if he's going to be sitting on the edge. With the Diva changes, that's partially the reason they picked up Mickey, who's a Taiwanese player. With the Diva nerfs, does that mean Mickey's off, Seagull's on? Again, there hasn't been any information about this. It's just kind of speculation through the community. But these are huge things, all from a patch. You know, we're talking about completely shifting a team dynamic, let alone the meta and everything else with it. So I just wanted to talk to you guys about that, open that up for conversation.
Yeah.
What do you think with this patch? You know,
Aiden, you've been a little expressive. What are you thinking?
I would really hope that Blizzard, and not to rip on Blizzard again, but
Again.
No, he wants tickets to BlizzCon. Let him in. Let him in. He loves
Hashtag
you.
ad.
We all love
Hashtag
Blizzard.
ad, yeah.
We've all played Blizzard games forever.
I do love Blizzard. I've played World of Warcraft for most of my life. Overwatch is something I enjoy incredibly, but I have to ask the question, why would you drop a major patch mid-season? These events are all massive events, and I clicked while you were talking. APAC is Asia Pacific, isn't it? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
APAC, and then you've got Apex, OGN.
Okay,
So there's
yeah.
OGN Korea,
there we go.
they do Apex, then there's APAC leagues that go on as well. So,
No, they're not leagues.
well,
Because
no.
in Overwatch, you can't call it a league.
we won't get into that branding. That was last week with red tape. Stop it.
Moving on.
Anyway, yeah, so my thoughts on this is exactly that. Why did they do it mid-patch? I mean, awesome changes. I love the new Battle Mercy. I can't work out why no one's figured out how to shoot her in the head yet and stop her from killing everyone. The D.Va stuff I quite enjoy. I don't think it's a nerf. I like it. But it does change the meta. And to do that mid-season, we saw it at League of Legends Worlds. Rengar came out and absolutely dominated everyone. No one knew what to do with him because they just changed it. They learned their lesson, haven't done that since. So I don't know why they would do it. I can't work it out at all.
And prefacing all of this, of course, is saying we don't know what's going on with BlizzCon for the World Cup. This is just saying, you know,
Please tell
pros
us.
and cons. Please tell us. Blizzard, at me.
At me.
Come at me, bro. Tell us what's going on, because it'd be nice to know, and the competitive scene wants to know to get prepared. We're looking, like you said,
It's fair to this team.
a month away. Like a month in esports is a fairly long time, but that's 4 weeks.
Yeah, and it's
Right.
confusing. Challenger leads into Contender, doesn't it? So if you got Challenger playing on the new patch and then Contender's playing on the old patch.
Yeah, and
How
another
does
thing that
that-
I thought about is that, like, a couple of players have said this to me. You know, a lot of teams, especially in OCE, they all watch these games to learn, to implement some of these strats into their own play style, and basically Apex and it's not relevant to them. They're not going to watch it. They're just going to watch the Apex Challenger because it's on the new patch. They're going to see what teams are going to be doing there, and of course people are still going to watch them because they want to see who wins and all that kind of thing. But in regards to seeing what's happening in the actual competitive scene, like back on Overwatch competitive, you know, people are going to want, obviously they're completely different things, you know, play styles in both, but it's in a way not relevant.
I think it's a big distinction, like you said. They are still going to watch it,
Yeah.
but watching the stuff on the
Different
old
reason.
patch is, you know, sit back, heels up, and let's enjoy watching this.
Yeah,
And you know, we're
5-man
just
res.
watching something competitive. Whereas they're going to take these new patch games and they're going to look at them and analyze them. Completely different way of watching the game.
Maybe we're going to have on Twitch, you'll see Overwatch New Testament and Overwatch Old Testament, 2 different channels. So maybe they can pick which one they want to
That'd
watch.
be great. We can have the Blood of the New Mercy Covenant.
Yeah. Ooh. Blood of the New Mercy. Wow. This.
And as long as Blizzard don't come out with an Easter patch involving a cross, we'll be all right.
Fingers crossed.
I think at the end of the day, Blizzard will come up with a decision,
will.
obviously. Regardless, players are going to have to move to it. If players are playing on the old patch and they need to move to the new patch, that's great. Some of the players, if we go the other way and they say World Cup's played on the old patch, some of the players are going to have to go, oh my lord, and get ready for the old patch to come back after playing new patch. There is going to be some shift.
How hard is it for, let's say they use the new patch they use the old patch for World Cup,
Yeah.
and then the players want to practice it. How hard is it for them to actually practice the old patch?
I think it's quite difficult.
I don't actually know.
I actually don't know either.
I think
'Cause
that's something Blizzard would have to
You
offer.
can't just
yeah.
go on an
Yeah.
official server, because in the game, it'll be the new
It's
patch.
all updated, yeah.
Wait, Blizzard there's private servers for Blizzard?
Oh my
No.
lord.
As in, like custom.
Blizzard's good at shutting down
What a
private
meme.
servers, so I'm going to say no, there won't be a private server. But that's a very good point. But in saying that, Blizzard could always go, oh, we made a boo-boo and wind it back. That's for me, that's probably the easiest solution.
But there's also like the sorry to jump back into it. One thing I wanted to kind of throw in there as well, just kind of clicked then. But some teams might play really well on the old patch, but really garbage on the new patch, and they
Yeah.
might have made it to BlizzCon. Whereas a team, you know, back then, if they do decide to play on the new patch, you know, that changes everything up.
And so we could be looking at different qualifiers and different teams coming in depending on which patch is actually played at BlizzCon.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And
does
I'll be
change a
able to
lot.
tell you that because I'll be outside of BlizzCon.
You can put your ear against the wall. And
Yeah,
try
so
and
I'll
hear
get the live updates as you get them.
We should probably get you a stethoscope. We can go fund me a stethoscope.
Stethoscope.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you
find me.
can
Give me a stethoscope.
listen in through the doors, get past security just to get to the door.
I'll just dress up like security. I'll find a way.
Perfect.
I'll just give you Jake's pro player badge.
Oh, yeah, from last year?
Yeah,
Yeah, no
yeah.
worries. Oh, no, I left my badge
I
at the
grabbed the
hotel.
wrong one.
I've got my last year's one.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
Oh, doesn't that happen to everybody with their
Yeah.
pro player badges? At the end of the day, Blizzard will come up with a decision, and that decision will be revealed, and then we'll be able to make decisions on the meta for the Overwatch World Cup and how teams are going to progress through. Regardless, BlizzCon is only a short hop, skip, and a jump away, and Aiden will be out the front of it because we're probably not even going to try to get him a BlizzCon ticket just for the meme.
Scratching at the door like a
But
Yeah.
I will say this, I'll be outside, but you can at me.
You can film for us, Miles Ross walking in.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Perfect, because
I'll do
he'll
the
probably,
cosplay.
he'll
Yeah,
probably
I'll-
be there.
I'll just film myself waving to people. I'll talk to the cosplayers, man.
Yeah,
They're the
that'd
cool
be
kids
great.
anyway, yeah.
Exactly.
Jessica
the cosplayers
Negri,
one.
at me.
Moving on, guys. The next topic I want to talk about comes back again to professionalism, and this time it's tournament admin. Looking at RLRS and some of the decisions that have been made regarding rosters and, of course, ineligible players. T-Ball, this is
Yeah.
yours.
Poor Cloudfuel.
We feel for him.
I think the best comment I saw put up was, feel sorry for him running a daycare.
Yeah.
It's like, it is like the Rocket League players across the scene are probably one of the younger scenes. And within that though, there's age requirements for the RLCS.
Indeed.
And if you're underage, you cannot play. There is a set date, it is written in stone, and you cannot. Now, one team that's in the RLRS has gone to use a sub, but he's underage. So what they've done is just said, hey, Aiden, you're underage and you're really good.
I am.
Yeah, can you just play my account for me today?
Oh,
Sure,
Lord.
mate, no worries, I got you covered. That's
Yeah.
a terrible idea.
It's not the best.
No.
It did come to light, and that team's been forfeited from the competition. Year bans handed
wow.
down. The player that came fourth, over a year ban is to the end of 2017 for the team. The player that was underage, that ban starts when he's eligible.
Which I think is a really good point to touch on, is that they're banning for eligible competition time. So they're not slapping the ban on him because then by the end of the ban he's able to play and then he's all good because they've just banned out ineligible time. They're saying once you can start playing,
Yep.
you cannot play, we'll ban you from then onwards because why
Yep.
start the ban now?
So he had an extra year tacked onto that, so he can't play until 2018.
Jeez. And this all came to light as well, so there was some discussion I saw on Twitter.
Well,
where
sorry, 2019.
2019.
Yeah.
I saw some discussion on Twitter where people were saying, why ban the guy that outed it?
I didn't get that far into it, and I don't want to go too deep in, but apparently there was some sort of involvement or knowing or should have come forward earlier, something along those lines. I'm not sure. It doesn't, it can set a scary precedent though to say, hey, I have proof of these people cheating. Can you do something about it? And they go, sure I can, but now as a whistleblower you get done as well. That can be worrisome, but I don't know the specifics around exactly what that player did.
Okay, fair enough. And I think at the end of the day, competitive integrity is what's important, and we want to see these teams perform well, but do it properly. Don't do things like this. Don't let an amazingly skilled, underage, ineligible player play on your account just so your team qualifies, because that's dumb. That goes without saying. It's against the rules. And again, get a lawyer. It's not hard. At the end of the day, though, Cloudfuel, props to him. He has a very hard job in managing a lot of the Rocket League across RLCS and RLRS.
And he does a good job.
He does.
He has a lot on his shoulders, and he does a lot for it. And coming from Rocket League Central, and then jumping straight into RLCS and really doing a good job with that and building it, huge.
I will add to that. I do think, whilst these are quite lengthy bans in the world of esports, I'm happy they didn't just go lifetime ban. They are giving them a chance to, I guess, repent and have another crack at it when they've done or served their time. So I think that's a good thing for esports. I hate those lifetime bans.
I agree.
On the first offense.
It's a massive topic that always has debate on Twitter. Someone will get banned for something, and all of a sudden we should just ban all of them, bannable for life. Don't let them back in. And people make mistakes. Let's not go into that discussion. But I agree that they are being served a penalty that's actually written into these books as well. There's some discretion in terms of the rule set and what penalty they hand out, but it's there.
As any rules, though,
That's
any
right.
rule set, there's always
Yeah.
discretion at hand.
There should always be discretion, but at the same time, we need to have some sort of standard that's coming across the board. RLCS are paving the way for that.
And RLRS as well. Like,
That's
it is
right.
great that they're bringing in the 9 to 16 bracket for both NA and EU. It's just one team sort of got forfeited.
One team was a
Bit
little
exciting.
overzealous trying to qualify.
I know they qualified for the RLRS.
Oh, it's just been
They
in
were
the
in it,
RLRS. Oh,
but-
lordy.
And because it was in league play, they didn't have time to re-put another team in. So there's only
Oh,
seven.
wow.
So there's only 7 teams in NA RLRS.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah.
So everyone made the top 8.
Top 7.
Everyone makes top 7. We've already found the wooden spooner for that league. I'm going to leave us with a very important award presented by our very own Lewis T-Borgratz. It's the E-Gaming Award. Lewis, tell us a little about this week.
Yeah, we certainly have. Well, we've got. It took us quite a long time to get this made up. It's right there. I can't. See if you can see. It does come under there with the sort
Give
of.
it a turn.
The
Yeah,
e-gaming. There. See.
The
We've got
E-Gaming Award.
Yeah. We've got our 3 chunks of DDR3 RAM in there.
Oh, lovely.
Yep.
Corsair, isn't it?
3 because that's the optimum number of chips to put in your motherboard.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any more than that, the motherboard doesn't process it. Yeah.
Motherboards don't use 4 RAM
Yeah,
cards,
yeah.
do they?
Of course, no. And
Right.
it's the ideal efficiency. As
Oh,
well.
perfect.
Of course.
So who wins the trophy this week, Lewis?
So the first ever e-gaming award
Inaugural.
goes to an actual esports awards show. The esports,
Irony.
Yeah. the esports industry awards. Now, they're doing some good work over there. However, team of the year, it came through with some fantastic names there, of course. We've got Astralis from CSGO. They've been fantastic all year. SK Telecom.
Yeah, I think Team Liquid from Dota 2 as well is on there. So.
Lunatic High and Overwatch.
Yeah, Optic from
Counter-Strike?
Call of Duty,
Call of
actually.
Duty, Call of
for
Call
Optic.
of Duty. And then we have
Got my guns mixed up.
the lifetime top ranking on HLTV, 103rd of Dynasty Fam.
Now, let me preface this, because this is important and we don't want to be taken out of context here. We're not wrecking on these players. Good on them, 103. They've capped it. They've done very well, and they're pushing the envelope for female players in the esports scene. Well done. We applaud you because you're pushing that envelope.
And they are the best female team.
Yeah,
They
definitely.
are. Absolutely.
They'd wreck me.
But the point we want to make is that this is an industry awards. You are looking at the best teams globally across titles in the industry. It's been a heated debate on Twitter about why in the world has this team been let in. They capped at 103 on the leaderboards in terms of how HLTV, and whatever weight you want to give them, let's not take them as gospel. But do they really deserve a place in the industry awards compared to the pedigree you get from SKT and Astralis and those other teams? Oakley, I'm going to leave a little bit of the seething to you on this one.
This whole thing frustrates me to no end. I see what they're trying to do. I can see that they've grabbed this team and been like, okay, they're the best female team. And we're going to smack them on there because, we need a female team because we don't want to be seen as
Hashtag
only
diversity.
having... Yeah, and I think it's more damaging than anything else because a lot of people are looking at this list and going, there are some fantastic names on here that well and truly deserve all the praise. I'm not saying that, this team doesn't deserve any praise or anything, but when you look at them in comparison to these other teams, do they deserve it?
Or like Liquid, the biggest prize-winning team of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you compare that, like we said, to the other pedigree, SKTT1 for League of Legends. That name puts shivers down my spine every time I say it because of how impressive they are year after year. And of course, this is, team of the year. But when you look at the history behind those teams, that's important to make that decision as well. Again, we're not ripping on these players. We're not ripping on the organisation.
It's not their fault.
We're ripping on the industry awards. And you made a good point, Oakley. It's in comparison. These are the nominees for that award. They go up against one another. I don't like using the word deserve and it's something that, deserve is a synonym for earned, yes, but the way deserve is used in the esports scene and often in speech is that, I deserved it, I'm removing the onus of responsibility from me. I'm going, I deserved that, but I haven't done anything to earn that.
Yeah.
Dynasty Femme have done great work. Like I said, not discounting that, but when you compare them, like any other industry award, the Grammys, the Emmys, the Golden Globes,
Well, they
compare
recognition.
the nominees.
Yeah.
They've earned recognition, is what you
Yes.
could say.
And I hope I don't come across as extremely brutal, but
No.
just my opinion in itself is basically like, it really does seem like they were like, look at this list of names, we need some chicks on there.
But they had, I think Thorin was the one who put out the tweet saying, I tried, I really tried, I helped, I gave them advice.
It
And
just looks like
then he
it's
was not
like
happy.
team of girls, yep, smack them on there. And I feel like if I personally was in a team that was in that position, I'd want to be on that list because I earned it, because I was in the top 10 spots, because I had a massive, fantastic like history of winnings and all that kind of thing. And it's, if I was in their position, I wouldn't want to be on that list purely because we're a femme team.
Yeah.
Again,
That's fair.
That's also what I think is harming the industry, is when they're trying to be so backwards in regards to sexism. They're trying so hard not to be
Reverse
sexist
sexism.
that they're being sexist.
And it's the roundtable discussion that continues
Yeah.
and will wage on forever in that we do want a higher female population in esports.
Yeah.
There's no arguing that, but it needs to be done the right way. It's just defining the right way. Nobody
Yeah.
can actually agree on that.
Yeah.
No. If anything, it damages the awards because these awards are meant to be credible awards, like the awards to get in our industry. If you're throwing in people like that and stripping away male, female, anything like that, and you're comparing them at face value, this is who they are, this is what they achieved as a team, you're not putting them up there. It's unfortunate, but it's what they did as an award show, so that's why they get the e-gaming award.
The wonderful e-gaming award,
Expertly crafted.
expertly crafted with the
Handmade.
lowercase e as well, capital G.
Yeah,
Hyphen.
that's how you
hyphen.
spell it, right?
That
Right.
is
E-gaming
E-game, yeah,
That's
e-gaming.
what we do here.
at Red Eye. At Paul Shalana. Let us know. Red Eye, please weigh in on how we've done e-gaming.
Yeah.
That's it from us for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Please give us your feedback. We're trying to improve the show. We're trying to improve our content. And as always, this discussion isn't just one for us here at the desk and on the couch, but it's one that we want to have with the community. You're the viewers, you're the listeners on the podcast, you're watching the VOD back, and you're a part of this amazing esports ecosystem that we have going on, not just here in Australia and New Zealand, but globally. These are issues that we're going to be bringing up that affect you as well as me, whether you're in North America or even Poland. So please, get onto our socials, let us know what you think, give us some feedback, not only on the content from tonight's show, but also how this amazing set's looking behind us. I want to thank my guests again for this week. We've got Oakley, Sleepy Time, Tchaikovsky, Lewis, Tibor, Gratz, and at the end there, Aiden, AK Hicko. Thank you so much for being on here with me again. And that's it from us. Tune in next week where we're going to have some more hard-hitting content for you. Let's see what the esports scene can drum up in terms of drama in just a few short days. We'll see you then.